He slapped me at my brother's wedding because I refused to hand over my penthouse. The crack of the slap rang out through the reception hall like a gunshot. All the chatter died instantly, the music stumbled, and every head in the room, around 200 people, whipped around to stare as my father's hand landed square across my face. My mother didn't rush to my side. She looked more embarrassed about the scene we were making than worried about the bright sting spreading across my cheek. "You selfish little brat," my father seethed, his face burning with fury. "After everything we've done for you." But before I dive into all that, let me say this. I've noticed the channel's been slowing down a bit lately. If you're here and you like these stories, hitting that subscribe button is the easiest way to show support. It's fast, it's free, and it really helps keep this community growing strong. I reached up, fingertips brushing my cheek, and tasted a little blood where my lip had split open. The makeup I'd spent an hour applying was probably ruined, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I was still trying to wrap my head around the insanity of what had just gone down. My name's Rachel Lynn. I'm 29 years old, and I had just been smacked across the face by my own father, right in the middle of my brother Daniel's wedding, because I refused to hand over my penthouse apartment to the newlyweds. Daniel and Sophie need a real home to begin their life together, my mom had said earlier, trapping me near the dessert table like I couldn't escape. "Your place is perfect, and you're living there all by yourself. Be reasonable, Rachel." But that penthouse wasn't just some spare space. It was my pride and joy. I bought that place with my own money I earned through years of working 60-hour weeks as a software developer. While Daniel hopped from one failed business idea to the next, cushioned by our parents' never-ending support, I was out there building a life on my own. "No," I said again, voice calm even though my hands wouldn't stop shaking. "The penthouse is mine. I worked for it. I paid every cent Daniel and Sophie can find a place of their own." That's when Dad decided to step in, his face flushed with champagne and inflated self-righteousness. "This isn't up for debate, Rachel. Your brother is the man of the family now. He needs that home." Ah yes, the man of the family. That phrase again. Daniel had always been their golden boy, even when he was burning everything down around him. His latest project, some sketchy crypto startup, had gone up in flames just last month, taking his investors' money with it. But I was the one being unreasonable for not wanting to surrender my home to him? "The answer is still no," I said firmly, keeping my voice low and steady. "And if you bring this up again, I'm leaving." That's when he slapped me. And now, standing in the dead silence of the reception hall, I saw it all clearer than I ever had before. My mother's fake concern. My father's blind, boiling entitlement. And Daniel, sweet, precious Daniel, sitting at the head table, smirking like this was all going according to plan. Even his new bride, Sophie, wore a smug little smile, as if my public shaming had made her wedding day complete. I straightened up, met my father's bloodshot eyes, and let a slow smile spread across my face. "You'll regret this," I said, my voice cutting through the stillness like a blade. "Every one of you will." Then I turned around and walked out, heels clicking sharply on the marble floor, leaving chaos behind me like a storm had passed through. I could hear my mother calling after me, her voice tight with panic, probably more worried about what the country club folks would say than anything else. But I didn't stop. Once I was in my car, the tears finally came, but they weren't from sadness. I was livid. No, furious. After years of being the dependable one, the steady one, the one who never asked for help, this was what I got in return? A slap across the face and a public humiliation because I didn't want to give up my home to my freeloading brother. My phone started buzzing with texts almost immediately. "Mom, come back inside. You're making a scene." "Daniel, stop being dramatic, sis. We'll talk it out later." "Dad, you'll give Daniel the keys tomorrow. This isn't a discussion." I stared at the screen for a moment, then switched off my phone completely. I didn't drive home. I couldn't bring myself to go back to that penthouse just yet. Instead, I headed to the only place I knew I could think clearly. A small, cozy coffee shop where I'd spent countless hours working on code, mapping out the life I wanted. The barista, Eli, took one look at me and didn't even ask. He just brought me my regular order, placing it gently in front of me. "Rough day?" he asked. "My father slapped me at my brother's wedding," I said flatly, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "Because I wouldn't give them my penthouse." Eli's eyes went wide. "Your penthouse? The one you spent 3 years working overtime to buy?" I nodded, sipping the coffee like it was the only thing holding me together. "Apparently, Daniel needs it more than I do," I muttered. "He's the man of the family, after all." "That's insane," Eli said, pushing a chocolate muffin across the table. "On the house. You look like you need it." I gave him a faint smile, then turned toward the window. As the sun dipped below the skyline and painted the cafe in a warm glow, I felt something shift. A plan was starting to form. My family figured they could just bully me into giving up, like I'd fold and hand over everything I'd worked so hard to build. They had no clue what I was really capable of. I pulled out my laptop and started firing off emails to my lawyer, my financial advisor, lining up my defenses. Then, I uploaded a batch of Kokomo ads to my private GitHub repo, quietly setting things in motion. Finally, I picked up the phone and called my real estate agent. "Remember that oceanfront place we talked about?" I asked as soon as she answered. "I'm ready to make an offer." By the time I finished my coffee, the groundwork for my comeback was already set. They wanted to take my home? Let them try. But they were about to find out the quiet, agreeable daughter they'd taken for granted vanished the instant my father's hand hit my face. This wasn't just a fight, it was war, and I was determined to win. The very next morning, my parents showed up unannounced at my penthouse. Dad pushed past the doorman, who'd already called me to warn that they were coming. I met them right at my front door, dressed for battle in my sharpest power suit, laptop in hand. "Where are you going?" Mom demanded as I locked the door behind me. "We need to talk about what happened." "Work," I said simply, brushing past them toward the elevator. "Some of us actually have jobs." "Don't you dare speak to me like that," Dad growled, grabbing my arm. I yanked it away, my voice freezing cold. "Touch me again, and I'll have security escort you out. And yes, there's video of your little stunt yesterday." The security cameras at the country club had caught everything, and that stopped them cold. Mom's face went pale. "You wouldn't dare," she said, voice trembling. The elevator dinged and the doors slid open. "Oh, and change the locks all you want," I added as I stepped inside. "I've already moved all the valuables to secure storage." The doors closed on their stunned faces. I waited until I was safely in my car before letting out a shaky breath. Phase 1 of my plan was officially underway. Over the next week, I ignored their calls and messages as they got louder and nastier. Daniel sent flying monkeys, mutual friends and family, trying to convince me to come around. I responded with passive-aggressive posts on social media about selfish people who don't support family. But I kept my mouth shut and kept working. What they didn't know was that I'd been preparing for something like this for years. Not this exact moment, of course. I never thought my father would actually hit me, but I'd always known they'd eventually try to take what was mine. That's why I had receipts for everything, every dollar I earned, every bill I paid, every upgrade I made to the penthouse. Security cameras in every room, backup codes for every lock. And, most importantly, I had leverage. See, while being the responsible daughter, I also played family tech support. I set up everyone's computers, phones, and emails. I had access to everything, including Daniel's business records. On day 10 of my radio silence, Mom switched tactics. She showed up at my office, tears in her eyes. "Your father's sorry," she said, sliding into the chair across from me like she belonged there. "He was just upset. You know how he gets when he's worried about Daniel." "Worried about Daniel?" I kept typing without looking up. "Or worried about what?" "What Daniel's investors will do when they find out where their money really went." Her sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit a nerve. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said carefully. "No," I said, finally looking up. "So you don't know about the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the consulting fees Daniel paid to Dad's business?" I saw the color drain from her face. "How did you?" "I'm very good at what I do, Mom. Did you really think I wouldn't notice Daniel using my old coding projects for his crypto scam?" "It wasn't a scam," she protested weakly. "He just made some mistakes." "Fraud isn't a mistake. It's a crime." I turned my laptop around and showed her the files I'd compiled, with proof Dad had helped him cover it all up. She stared at the screen, hands trembling. "What do you want?" she whispered. "To be left alone," I said. "No more demands. No more flying monkeys. No more social media drama. The penthouse is mine. End of story." "And if you refuse?" I gave her the same smile I'd flashed at them at the wedding. "Then these documents go to the SEC, along with the video of Dad assaulting me. I'm sure the investors will want to know exactly where their money went." Her voice cracked. "You're destroying your own family. You did it the moment you told me to give up my home. When Dad hit me. When Daniel sat there grinning like it was funny." I turned my laptop screen back toward me. "I'm done being your emotional punching bag." She didn't say another word, just got up and left. But I knew deep down this wasn't the end of it. They'd be furious. Desperate, even. And I still had one last move to make. That evening, my real estate agent gave me a call. The oceanfront property, the luxury complex I'd been eyeing for months, was officially mine. Ironically, it was the same place Daniel and Sophie had been dreaming of renting for their newlywed fairy tale. I logged into my private GitHub repo and pushed the final updates to a side project I'd been building for years, my own property management system. The very same one Daniel had tried to rip off and pass off as his own in that doomed startup of his. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Mom told me what you're doing. You can't prove anything." I grinned and fired back a screenshot, his server logs, pulled straight from his private hosting. His reply came fast. "What do you want?" "Distance," I typed back. "Complete and permanent. No calls. No favors. No guilt tripping over family duty. My penthouse and my life are off limits. And if I say no, then I bury you," I answered. "I own your dream apartment complex, and I've got a trail of digital receipts that prove every shady deal, every lie. Enough to sink both you and Dad for good." He started typing, then stopped, then started again. Finally, his message popped up. "You've changed." "No," I wrote back. "I just stopped pretending to be the version of me you all wanted." I silenced my phone, stepped out onto my balcony, and leaned into the cool night air. The sun was dipping behind the skyline, casting golden streaks over the city. Something about it felt final, like the end of a chapter I'd been stuck in for years. The family I once knew was fading out. But for the first time in a long while, I felt free. Truth is, the most powerful kind of revenge isn't about taking someone down. It's about stepping into your own life fully and finally. 3 months after the wedding fallout, I was curled up in my penthouse, sipping coffee and flipping through tenant applications for the oceanfront complex. It turned out to be a solid investment, especially after I implemented my management software. I built something real, something lasting. Then my phone buzzed with an alert. Daniel and Sophie had just been evicted from their luxury rental. 2 months behind on rent. I wasn't the least bit surprised. Without Dad's money, and that pipeline had dried up the moment I dropped the hammer on their little fraud scheme, they were finally being dragged into reality. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. I glanced at the security cam. My father was standing there, looking older than I remembered, tired, worn down. For a moment, I thought about ignoring him, but curiosity got the better of me. I hit the intercom. "What do you want?" "5 minutes," he said, his voice unusually soft. "Please, Rachel." I opened the door, but didn't step aside or invite him in. He stood there, awkward, fidgeting. That usual swagger of his? Gone. "Daniel and Sophie are moving back in with us," he said at last. "They couldn't keep the apartment." "I know," I said, meeting his eyes. "I own the building." His head snapped up, stunned. "You? But how?" "Because I'm damn good at what I do, Dad," I told him. "Always have been. You just never cared enough to notice." He slumped a little, leaning against the doorframe like the weight of everything had finally hit him. "Your mother misses you." "We all do." "No," I corrected, my voice calm but firm. "You miss having someone to control. Someone to throw under the bus for Daniel's sake. That person doesn't live here anymore." He was quiet for a beat, then said softly, "I was wrong. About everything. The slap. The demands. Protecting Daniel. I've lost everything because of this," he murmured, voice low. And it was true. After I threatened to expose everything, he'd been forced to resign from his company's board. His once sterling reputation in the business world was now in ruins. Funny thing is, I never even released the documents. The threat alone had been enough to unravel him. "You haven't lost everything," I told him. "You've still got your golden child. Isn't that the only thing that ever really mattered to you?" "Rachel, please," he said, the words fragile. "We're still family." "Family?" I let out a dry laugh. "Family doesn't ask you to give up your home like it's nothing. Family doesn't strike you across the face in public. Family sure as hell doesn't sit there smirking while it happens." He flinched with every word. But I wasn't finished. "You know what hit me after the wedding?" I asked, steady and sure. "I realized I never needed any of you. Not for a damn thing. Everyone I've had, every goal I hit, it happened in spite of you all, not because of you." "I know," he whispered, eyes cast down. "I see that now." I studied him, this man who had once loomed so large in my life. He'd always felt untouchable, intimidating. But standing there on my doorstep, he looked small. Just another man carrying regret. "Your 5 minutes are up," I said, slowly starting to close the door. "Wait," he blurted, pulling an envelope from inside his jacket. "Your mother wanted you to have this. It's an invitation to her birthday dinner next week. We'd really like you to come. I took the envelope without opening it. I'll think about it, I said, and shut the door. Later that evening, I sat on my balcony, turning the envelope over in my hands. Part of me wanted to toss it in the trash, to preserve the distance I'd worked so hard to establish. But another part, deeper, steadier, understood something else. Real victory isn't about cutting people off forever. It's about having the power to choose your terms. The following week, I did attend my mother's birthday dinner. I showed up late, left early, barely said a word, but I watched everything. Daniel and Sophie sat quietly, their designer labels replaced by plain clothes from local stores. My father stayed sober, choosing every word like it was under surveillance. My mother tried too hard, her smile stretched thin, more anxious than warm. They were walking on eggshells, all of them, fully aware that the balance of power had shifted. But I had no interest in lording it over them. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about protection, about guarding the life I'd built. In the months that followed, something like a new family dynamic began to take shape. They learned slowly that my boundaries weren't suggestions. They stopped treating me like the fallback plan. Daniel and Sophie picked up modest jobs and moved into a small apartment they could afford on their own. Dad stayed in the picture, but at a distance, sending the occasional email with business links or opportunities, always tentative, always polite. Mom took the longest to adjust. She kept trying to bridge the gap, still hoping I'd morph into the daughter she'd always imagined. But eventually, even she started to see me for who I really was and made peace with it. A year after the wedding disaster, I hosted a dinner at my penthouse. Not for family, but for the ones who truly stood by me. Eli from the coffee shop, who gave me space to scheme and breathe when I needed it most. My real estate agent, who helped me land my best investment yet. And my lawyer, who guarded my interests like a fortress. As we shared food on the balcony, the city bathed in warm golden light from the setting sun, Eli lifted his glass. To Rachel, he said, grinning, who turned a slap into an empire. I smiled, feeling the truth of it settle in my chest. That moment of humiliation, as awful as it was, had led me here. Not just to financial success, but to real, hard-won freedom. To the power to set boundaries. To demand respect. To live on my terms. Sometimes, revenge isn't about burning everything down. Sometimes, it's about rising up stronger, sharper, wiser. And sometimes, it's about discovering that the people you choose to call family can mean far more than the ones you were born to. I raised my glass and joined the toast, finally at peace. With the slap. With the struggle. With all of it. They tried to take my home. Instead, they gave me my freedom. And to me, that was worth more than any penthouse.